Welcome to Thinking Deeper by 6-7. Okay, picture this. Imagine a world where gods are absolutely real. You can see them, they've got superpowers, but they're completely irrelevant when it comes to the big questions, like saving your soul.
Right. It's a world where the gods might even be your neighbors.
Exactly. And today, we're tracking the journey of a 65-year-old man who walked across the Gobi Desert, climbed the Himalayas, not for treasure, but for a book of rules.
And what he found, what he documented, was a religious system that just completely shatters our modern ideas of theism and atheism.
It's a faith where humans don't pray to gods for help. Instead, the gods are, well, they're the ones taking notes from us.
Is a complete inversion of everything we're used to in the West, spiritually speaking.
Yeah.
We're diving into the travelogue of Faxian, a Chinese monk from AD 399.
399. That's incredible.
Yeah. He spent 15 years traveling from China to India and back, and his book, A Record of Buddhistic Kingdoms, it's this. It's a bizarre and fascinating mix of gritty survivalism and really high concept theology.
And, before we get completely lost in the desert with him, I just have a quick favor to ask. We're really trying to grow this community of curious minds. So if you like my channel, please subscribe and press the like button. It honestly helps us get these deep dives out to more people.
So to really get why this 65-year-old man would risk, everything freezing starvation, we have to understand what he was after. He was looking for the Vinaya.
Okay, let's pause there. Vinaya. To me, that sounds like a nice place to go on vacation. What exactly is he chasing?
Well, think of the Vinaya as less of a rule book and more of an operating system for a monk.
Operating system. Okay.
In China, at that time, Buddhism was a bit chaotic. They had the big ideas, the philosophy, but the actual discipline, the nuts and bolts of how you eat, dress, settle arguments, that was all incomplete. The code was buggy.
So Faxian saw this as a major problem.
A huge one. He believed that without that strict discipline, enlightenment was impossible. So he decided to go to the source code, India.
That is some serious dedication to bureaucracy, traveling a whole continent just to get the employee handbook.
It is. But the Dani, it reveals so much more. And we're seeing this through the eyes of the translator, James Legge, who was a Victorian scholar.
Right, late 1800s.
And you can feel his confusion in the footnotes. He's trying to box it in. Is it a religion? Is it philosophy? And then he just drops this bombshell. He describes the system Faxian sees as technically atheistic.
That stopped me cold, because I'm reading the text, and Faxian is seeing magic everywhere. He's talking about dragons, nagas protecting monks. He sees spirits, divas, flying relics. How can a guy who sees dragons be an atheist?
It sounds like a total contradiction,
Yeah.
right? Because our modern idea of atheism is basically materialism. If you can't touch it, it doesn't exist.
Right.
But Legge is using the older theological definition. He points out, especially in his notes on chapter 16, that in this worldview, there was no creator, no single supreme being who designed it all.
So the universe just wasn't made.
Exactly. It's uncreated. And even more radical, especially for a Victorian guy like Legge, is the idea of no soul in man, no permanent, unchanging self.
Okay, but then what are all these gods he keeps running into? The nagas and divas you mentioned. If they're not gods with a capital G, what are they?
This is where it gets really fun.
Yeah.
So imagine the universe is a giant apartment building.
Okay, with you.
We humans live on, say, the third floor.
Yeah.
Animals are on the second. The gods, the divas, they live up in the penthouse. They have better views. They live longer. They have powers that look like magic to us.
Awful.
But, and this is the whole key, they're still tenants. They didn't build the building. They pay rent with karma, just like us. And eventually their lease runs out. They die, they get reborn, maybe as a human, or worse.
That just completely flips the power dynamic on its head. In most Western religions, the gap between a person and God is infinite. You can't cross it.
Whatever.
But here, the gods are just neighbors with a better view.
And they're neighbors who are trapped in the exact same cycle of existence as everyone else. Which brings us to, I think, the most stunning visual in the entire book. The procession in Khotan. It's in chapter 3.
Oh, I loved this part. It was like he was describing a massive parade, but with, cosmic stakes.
It's a huge festival. They clean the streets, set up these amazing tents, and they build these four-wheeled image cars. They're basically parade floats, 30 feet high. They look like moving palaces.
And this is the image that got me. The king of Khotan. A powerful secular ruler, right? Life and death power. But when that float carrying the Buddha image approaches, he takes off his crown, he changes into simple clothes, and he walks barefoot out of the city gate to meet it. He's bowing down.
It's the secular bowing to the spiritual. But look closer at who's on the float. You've got the Buddha image standing there. And who's attending him? Holding the umbrella and fanning him? The gods.
And he names them. He mentions Indra and Brahma. That must have shocked a Victorian translator.
Oh, absolutely. In Hinduism, Brahma is the creator of the universe. Indra is the king of the gods. He's like Zeus, throwing lightning. But in Faxian's account, in this Buddhist world, they're servants. They're attendants.
It's like seeing the CEO of a global corporation serving coffee to a new intern.
If that intern has achieved enlightenment, yes. Because in this system, raw power, being able to throw lightning, is less important than understanding the truth. The Buddha is awake. The gods are still dreaming.
Wow.
There's this other great story Faxian tells about the pigeon monastery.
Is that the one that's carved out of a single piece of rock? Like a huge complex?
Yes. The architecture is incredible, but the origin story is the point. The legend says that Sakra, that's Indra, king of the gods, came down to visit the Buddha.
Right.
But he didn't come to give orders. He came with a list of 42 questions that he carved into a rock for the Buddha to answer.
42 questions. So the king of all the gods is confused, and he goes to a human and says, "Hey, can you explain how the universe works?"
Precisely. The divine being is the student. And that is the absolute core aha moment here. The ultimate power in this universe isn't divinity, it's discipline. It's the result of following that Vinaya code. You can be a god and be totally lost. You can be a human and be the master of gods.
Which, okay, brings us back to the atheism thing.
Yeah.
If there's no creator god to pray to for help, I mean, you can't ask Brahma to fix things because he's busy asking questions himself. Where does all the magic come from? Because Faxian's world is full of miracles.
It comes from merit, and this is where the whole thing gets very, very physical. You'd think a philosophy about impermanence and no self would be super abstract.
Yeah, you would.
But Faxian is obsessed with stuff. Physical objects.
Yeah.
Bones, teeth, robes.
The relics. I was reading chapter 13 about the festival of Buddha's skull bone in Nagra. He doesn't describe it like a mystic. He's like a forensic scientist. He says it's yellowish white, 4 inches around, under a glass bell.
And did you notice the security? The king is terrified it'll be stolen. So 8 different chiefs from 8 families each have a key, a seal. The gate only opens if all 8 are there.
It's like a nuclear launch code for a bone.
Exactly. And then people have to pay gold just to look at it. It's so transactional.
It is. That's the word for it.
Because that's the point. In a universe without a god handing out free grace, merit becomes the currency. It's an economy. That skull bone isn't a souvenir. It's a battery. It's charged with the immense merit of the Buddha's past actions.
So being near it, paying to see it,
You're getting a transfer.
Yeah.
You're downloading some of that positive energy.
It's like you're tapping your card for a spiritual top-up.
Pretty much. Faxian even talks about the cave of the shadow. He says there's a permanent, brilliant white shadow of the Buddha on a rock wall that no artist can copy.
A permanent shadow of a being who is supposed to be impermanent.
Right. It suggests the Buddha's actions left a physical dent in the structure of reality that even time can't smooth over.
But those actions, we really have to talk about what he did to earn that merit. Because Faxian visits the sites of the Jataka tale stories of the Buddha's past lives. And these are not happy bedtime stories. They're gruesome.
They are incredibly violent, but the violence is the entire point.
I'm thinking about the story with the hawk and the dove.
Chapter 9, yep.
So the Buddha, in a past life as a king, sees a hawk chasing a dove. The dove flies to him for protection. The hawk basically says, "Hey, I need to eat. If you save the dove, I starve." It's a logic problem.
A moral trap. Life consumes life. There's no clean answer.
So what does the king do? He doesn't pray for a miracle. He takes out a knife, slices flesh off his own thigh, and puts it on a scale to equal the dove's weight, to feed the hawk.
And it gets more intense. The tigress story. In chapter 11, he finds a starving tigress who is about to eat her own cubs.
Oh, I remember this.
So to save them all, he just throws himself off a cliff so his body can be her meal.
It's horrifying.
It is. But think about the contrast with, say, Western monotheism.
Yeah.
In the Bible, God stops Abraham from sacrificing Isaac.
Right, there's a ram in the thicket.
Divine intervention saves the day. In the world, Faxian is describing, nobody saves you. There is no ram in the thicket. You save others by destroying yourself.
That distinction is just. It's huge. The power isn't coming from on high. It comes from this willingness to be utterly annihilated for someone else.
It's self-destruction is the creative force. That is how you earn the merit that makes the earth shake and makes the gods bow. You don't ask for power. You give everything away until you become the most powerful thing there is.
And that makes Faxian's own journey make so much more sense. He's living that. He's giving up his comfort, his safety, maybe his life, just to bring these rules back. Which, speaking of risking his life,
Right.
we have to talk about the trip home.
Oh, man.
Because if the trip there was hard, the trip back was a complete nightmare.
Chapter 40. He's been gone 15 years. He's an old man now, almost 80. He has the books he came for. He gets on a merchant ship to sail back. And then the storm hits.
And not just a little rain. A black squall, no GPS, nothing but endless ocean. And the mood on that ship turns ugly, fast.
Humans under pressure, they always look for a scapegoat. And the boat is full of Brahmins merchants who believe in the traditional Hindu gods. And to them, a storm is divine anger.
And they need a reason for that anger.
So they look around and they see the odd one out, the Buddhist monk.
They point right at Faxian. It's this guy, he's bad luck. Throw him overboard and the gods will calm down.
Can you imagine the terror? You're an old man, you're clutching your life's work, and a mob wants to sacrifice you to a god you don't even believe in.
But he has a protector on board, doesn't he? A patron who steps in.
He does. This guy stands up and says, if you throw this monk off, you throw me off too. If I live, I am going straight to the Emperor of China and telling him you murdered one of his monks.
The threat of imperial justice? That works. But what's Faxian doing while this is all happening? He's not fighting, he's praying. But who is he praying to?
This is the critical detail. He prays to Avalokitesvara Kuan Yin, the hearer of prayer. But he's not asking a creator to bend the laws of physics for him. He says, I have traveled far in search of the law, let me return. He's invoking the power of the Sangha, the community of monks and the merit of the Bodhisattvas.
It feels less like begging a king for a favor and more like calling on your union reps.
That is a brilliant way of putting it. He's relying on the collective spiritual weight of the order he belongs to. He is betting his life that the discipline he's followed has actual, real-world power.
And it works. He survives. He lands in China. But the end of the book is so, I don't know, it's so quiet. He doesn't get a parade.
No, not at all. Leahy's translation is really moving.
Yeah.
Faxian just says something like, I looked back on what I had gone through and my heart was moved. He says he risked death because he had a definite aim.
A definite aim. He wanted the rules, he got the rules, he translated them, and because of him, Chinese Buddhism got the structure it needed to flourish.
He was the bridge. He proved that the truth wasn't just a local idea, but a universal law you could carry across deserts and oceans.
So when we step back from this 1,600-year-old story, what have we found? A universe with no boss, gods who are just students, and a system where the only way to get power is to give it all away.
I think the ultimate takeaway is this radical belief in human potential. In most religions, we are small, the divine is big, we're the ants. Faxian's world flips that. The human who masters himself, who follows the rules, who wakes up, that human is superior to the highest God in heaven.
That's a heavy thought. We look up at the stars and we feel insignificant. He looked up at them and thought, if I work hard enough, I can be greater than all of that.
Exactly. If the gods are just fellow travelers subject to the same laws of karma we are, then a disciplined human is the most powerful force in the entire universe. The only ceiling is our own lack of discipline.
That is a very provocative thought to leave you with. Maybe the power we're looking for isn't out there in the heavens, but right here in our ability to hold on to a definite aim, even in the middle of a storm.
It's indeed.
Thank you for journeying with us to the year 399. It's been a fascinating ride.
It was a pleasure.
And thanks to you for listening. We'll see you next time on Thinking Deeper by 6-7.